Mark, thanks for your time.
No worries.
Go back to childhood, Queanbeyan and Mark Webber, rugby league, motor racing. Earliest memories of Porsche back then?
Oh yeah, it was a friend of my dad's had a 911 actually, so I was very jealous that I didn't get to drive that until I got my license. But yeah, I absolutely loved the iconic 911 shape, and yeah, I suppose that was my first real memories of seeing my first Porsche for the first time.
And were you like other kids where we had a brand through childhood?
Yeah.
Did you have Porsche as a kind of lust brand back then?
Well, it was probably unachievable. It was there. You knew it was there, but it was a million miles away from what I ever thought was possible. Clearly, so yeah, there was other brands locally in Australia, obviously, but the chance to get closer to the brand later on, I never thought was going to be the case. But it's been a phenomenal journey.
And what drew you to Porsche in that later time? Is it the sound, the speed, the design? What are the kind of things that really stand out to you about Porsche?
Yeah, well, when I was in Formula One, I was already buying a few Porsches here and there. So I love how understated they are, but of course the performance is extraordinary and the build quality is exceptional. So they pride themselves on excellence, and they have done for such a long period of time. They continue to move the boundaries on the products, and they find the challenging segments that they want to go in and really disrupt and really do a great job with that. So they have done that for such a long period of time. The forward drive technology with the 959 all those years ago, and then the 918 come along as a supercar after the Carrera GT supercar as well. So, you know, they've been synonymous with legendary cars within the brand, and yeah, it's been tremendous for me to be a part of the brand now, but I was, you know, well involved with the brand as a customer very aggressively before that.
And is that where the Taycan comes in, disruption?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the Taycan, in terms of how big this is for Porsche, is absolutely ginormous. For them to do a fully electric car, it's been a long time in the making. There's been a tremendous amount of resources and funding spent on understanding this technology. We believe it's by far the best in the segment, which we're excited about. All the records suggest that. There's 3 or 4 already outstanding records that this car has already done to prove that we're very, very proud of the work that's been done. But yeah, 70 years of Porsche, you know, getting to this journey of constantly, you know, taking on those challenges and keeping the soul inside the brand, which is what Porsche does do so well. They do new products. They have the opportunity to go into new spaces, but they keep the DNA within the Porsche brand. And every Porsche is a sports car, and that's what Porsche want to do. And this is what's happened with the Taycan as well.
So it's a fully electric car. It's a Porsche. Is it? You talked about the soul. Talked about the DNA. What makes the Taycan a Porsche, given it's a fully electric car and that's the first time that Porsche's been there?
Yeah, what makes the Taycan a Porsche is absolutely the performance. Of course, yes, we all know electric cars, acoustically, there's not a great deal of noise, but of course you still have the huge amount of driving performance and the driving experience, how engaged you are with the car. And what you get with that is that you need to have an underlying brutality of performance, and that's what the Taycan has. You know, we know this thing's got over 1,000 newton meters of torque. It has in certain modes nearly 750 horsepower. It does 0 to 200 in a very, very quick space of time over, in repeated bouts, which a lot of people won't understand that in electric EV technology, but that is very, very hard to do. Again, leader in its segment. So you need performance. That is the pillar of giving the driver the real feel that they've got something special. The eye line, if you sit very, very low in this car, the wheel arches look like a 918 or like a 919, which is synonymous back to our racing heritage. So that's what continues to get rammed into this product is our success on the racetrack put into our street cars.
What does it sound like?
It sounds pretty quiet, but there might be some little tricks we can do to give you a little bit of a ring in your ear if you want that option.
Bit of acoustic work inside, essentially, to make you feel like you're still getting that rush.
Yes, absolutely.
As opposed to just the wind.
And the good thing is it's around some of our other models as well, which is great. So
Had you driven electric cars before you got involved in this program?
Race cars, yes.
Road cars.
Yeah, no road cars. I've never driven any other electric street car other than the Taycan. So I've driven this a lot on the racetrack. So as usual, the brief from Porsche is go out there and drive it as hard as you want, as quick as you want. Yeah. So that's every time I've driven this car, it's been on the racetrack. I haven't done a huge amount on the street, but it's been extraordinary. So the other electric exposure I had was with the 918 and the 919. So I've been doing it now for about 6 or 7 years. So we have been on a great journey, and we're absolutely stoked with how it's come out.
So where does the 919, the LMP1 experience come into your work with Porsche on this road vehicle?
Yeah, well, the work comes in from the racetrack when you deal with electrical, the power that you get from electrical, the engines and the motors and how it works, whatever you want to call them, the way that you deliver that torque and the way where all the packaging is. And we have an 800 volt battery with this car as well, which we had with the 919 too. That's a lot of voltage. A lot of other people have also stood away from that type of voltage. So all of those learnings that we put, whether it's reliability, whether it's performance, because clearly I'm in a performance part of the equation. Yes, I need reliability to win races, but we have a lot of performance that's linked into that. So we need the car to be predictable. I need the car to be consistent. I need it to be reliable. All of these things to have the most wins at the Le Mans 24 hour with the cars that we did have in those last 3 victories all had electrical power to get those victories done. So without that durability and all those components you mentioned that a racing driver needs, that's what swings across.
So you're involved in the testing of the car over many, many months. When you get into, how different is it from when you first drove prototype / engineering version to today in terms of drivability, handling?
Very, very different, yeah. And I do love the German engineers. Sometimes when it's too early, they get a bit embarrassed because they don't want to show you how it's going in the early phases. And I'm saying, guys, I'm cool for that. That's exactly what, because from racing, we know that that's how it is. It's a journey you go on. And they're so proud of their work. They're working on the quality, all the minutiae of how they can improve anything.
What sort of things would you have, if you got behind the wheel and as a race driver, you go back to the garage and you debrief with your engineer about this, that and the other, things that you want tweaked. You get behind the wheel of that engineering sample that they're building. What things are you suggesting that they tweak? Of
course, as a racing driver, we do look at the top end of that performance. Yes, we're on a racing track, so we push incredibly hard, but also my mind is a little bit, I still know I'm driving a street car, so I have to have my friends in my mind, that potential customers and also myself, how's this going to be dealt with on the road in terms of some of the feeling that I have and how aggressive it is and those type of things. So there's always different parallels you need to keep in play, but also make sure you don't go too aggressive. But of course, how the brakes are feeling, of course, throttle response, steering inputs, all the 101s that come with car design from an early conceptual perspective, you need to put that into play. And yes, as a racing driver, we are frustratingly perfectionists. We want it to be as good as we can, to have both. We want our cake and eat it. We want high-end performance, but we want to be able to take it on the street. So, and that's where you need the best engineers in the world too, because it's a brilliant tennis match between the engineers consuming that information, then putting it into practice, when it comes to next time you drive the car and moving that forward, because they're very proud of the work they do. They know that there's some information there they want to try and pull out and then put that into the car when it comes to driving it again for the next time.
So you mentioned you hadn't driven any other EV other than this one. I guess you would have read and seen the way EVs are reported, especially Tesla. It's reported heavily about acceleration. It's the number one thing that gets talked about, especially by the fanboys. What for you stands out about this car, as well as the acceleration, in terms of what makes this a performance sports car that bears the Porsche badge? Yeah,
I think the 0 to 100 in the EV segment is not overly difficult to achieve, but obviously what it is repeatedly doing that. And if you're here in Europe and doing a high alpine pass, for example, in electric vehicle with all the hairpins and repeated accelerations, that's not that easy, to pull that off. And we believe we are in a really, really good position to take the customer in somewhere where they cannot do that at the moment, which is exciting for us. Aerodynamically, very excited with the aerodynamics. The coefficient, the drag coefficient of the car is extremely, extremely slick, so that's good for efficiency. Of course, seating position, the finish of the car, that is, we hope it's the best out there by a long shot. So that's something which we're very, very, very proud of as well. So, all the Porsche DNA is inside there. We have to have that embodied in there. And yes, you can have your headline figures, a little 0 to 100s and all those type of things. There's a lot of cars that can do that. Well, how does it stop? How does it turn? What's the response like? How's the body roll? How's the four-wheel drive component? How's the torque distribution? All those things which you cannot, the R&D process on that has been extremely challenging, but because of our racing history and because of the resources that Porsche have thrown at this, we've dropped onto something pretty unique. As a Porsche customer, as someone who's thrown, I'm assuming, some serious coin behind some Porsches over the years,
Does it feel to you the same as what you would have always expected from a Porsche, or is that adjustment still there for existing Porsche owners who are going to put their money down on this car? Are they in for a bit of a rude shock, both for the acceleration and the style of drive?
They are. I really do. I'm really confident in believing that they are in for a really, really pleasant surprise. I think that we are so not over-promising anything with this car in terms of its performance. We're extremely proud of that. I'm a racing driver, so there's anything that, with electric vehicles, the biggest thing that we might get frustrated with is the weight. Of course, all electric vehicles are, they are heavier than the previous cars that we used to. But in terms of, it takes probably, guys like us, that are fussy with where the weight is and how the weight is used and how that might affect the performance. But apart from that, which you pretty quickly forget anyway if you're not pushing the absolute to the limit, because that's most people won't be doing that anyway. No. So but all those other components, and keep in mind the center of gravity of this is lower than 911. The eye line, the way that the architecture of the interior has been done is all extremely low center of gravity, and again best in segment. So I'm not comparing apples for apples in terms of old cars and EV cars, because it's just that is something that they can't win at the moment in the whole segment.
Is there a time that you foresee Porsche being fully electric, given this is the future, this is such a big project for Porsche, let alone the industry?
Yeah.
Do you see a fully electric Porsche future?
Porsche really believe this is the future, yes, and by 2025, probably half of the cars will be fully electric. So it's a big commitment from Porsche. They're spending a huge amount of money, over 5 billion euros in this space, and we believe that that's something that we're very excited with, and I'll keep the performance in there, and of course, green sustainability, keeping the brand, connected to the future.
Purist Porsche fan, race driver, is a 911 electric foreseeable?
You're asking the wrong guy. I think that
would you buy one?
Well, I think that before I drove racing cars with electric, I was so on the fence at best. I was like, I've driven some seriously impressive combustion engines in my life, but when I got a chance to sample the 919 for the first time, and just I think the sheer torque, there is not a single racing driver. It was actually only the other night I was talking with Nico Hülkenberg and Daniel Ricciardo and Charles Leclerc, and we're talking about the 919, the acceleration of that car. So all the Formula One drivers are talking about the four-wheel drive acceleration, and that 919 without the electric component, none of the drivers want to drive it. It is half the car it is without the electric component. So that shows you what these cars are capable of now. Yes, acoustically quiet, but we move on pretty quick in society, don't we?
Plenty of kids, especially back home in Australia, would have watched you 11 years in Formula One. That's like living your dream stuff. And then you go on to you win a world championship in the endurance, and now you're a Porsche brand ambassador. Your job is to live and breathe these cars. Are you still pinching yourself? Is this still the dream? Yeah,
of course. I mean, as I say, I was buying Porsches before I was linked to the brand. I was very fortunate to race for Porsche, with great teammates and great colleagues in the cockpit, which I really enjoyed, more than I ever thought I would, actually, enjoying having that spirit amongst the drivers, which was tremendous. And then you get a feeling of the history of the brand. Yes, you are to a degree passing through, because it is so big and so impressive what they have done, going right back to the first 356, and then also pushing all the boundaries, whether it's on track or on the street. So for me to be involved with a brand that they never rest on their laurels, they're always pushing the boundaries, they strive for excellence, the build quality is extraordinary, but ultimately there has to still be a sports car inside there. They never back off from that sports car mentality of having the most highest performing car in every single segment, and that's what Porsche is renowned for.
6 years out of F1, what do you miss about it?
Probably the teamwork. I missed a little bit of the teamwork, and working to a goal, and then having something at the end of it where everyone's really strived to get the best out of themselves. And obviously, as a driver, you were a key part of that success. So that was a tremendously rewarding scenario to be in. But you knew you had a great team of people behind you, because there's nothing. It's not an individual sport in that sense. So I don't miss driving the car really too much at all. But I do miss the sort of that team spirit and pushing forward as a common goal. So but you never know.
I'm lucky I get to speak to Daniel the last 3 years at the start of the year in Barcelona, testing time. He's always very optimistic about the year ahead, as everyone is with their own situation. We're a long way through the season now. Did he make the right call? Switch.
I think he's looking to next year already. I think that this year's been really hard for Renault, and ultimately, it's been a tough start for him there. He knows he's made his bed. Nico Hülkenberg is now leaving the team as well. So, he's the main guy there. That team really need to find a huge amount of performance to keep him happy, because obviously I'm not sure where he's in the championship at the moment. It's not where Daniel wants to be, and not where he deserves to be either.
You're working with English TV on Formula One, so you're still deeply involved. You've seen the 2021 wind tunnels work. What are your thoughts initially on that? The Ross Brawn created 2021 vision.
I haven't seen actually too much with it. I've seen a couple of photos, probably just like you guys have online. I haven't got too much into it, to be honest, but I think that, they're trying to make the cars obviously more ground effect efficient, and get the load off the top and get it into the floor so the guys can follow closer, and obviously play with tyre technology too. So every now and again we've had a couple of cracking races this year, but some of them have been more challenging. But I just think the cars are they're getting heavier, and talking to the guys, I'd like to get the cars to get them a lot lighter, get them smaller, and get them more compact so they can start to get some moves going again. And that's our biggest challenge, is probably just the weight keeps cranking up and going off a line as heavy as they ever have. Even next year they're going to be even heavier, so that's something that drivers want to keep an eye on.
Back to Porsche, back to electric. Porsche's in Formula E when that kicks off shortly. It's an amazing category, but do you see a time where the premier category is electric, or is that just too far off into the distance?
Yeah, definitely they're independent at the moment. Yeah, Formula One has its own space, of course, and there's a lot of incredible manufacturers, gravitating towards Formula E, because it's exactly all the reasons we just discussed here, with the sustainability and all the renewable energies, and having that story for the manufacturers to go racing on the weekend. So Formula E's going great guns. They're taking the races to the fans, which is also important, for the millennials and the new generation coming through to watch, trying to make it as accessible as possible, which is important. Formula One's always been the pinnacle in terms of the Drivers' Championship. I would say that the drivers within Formula E, the actual level of the whole field is probably above Formula One in terms of the average talent level is incredibly high in Formula E. But obviously the big guys in Formula One are phenomenal. We know that. So you never know. Over time, Liberty own both of them anyway, so maybe they will get together at some point.
Last question. You're going to show a lot of people this car over the days, weeks, and months ahead. What's the first thing you bring someone to when you show them this car? What's your standout feature?
I think that, you've got to see inside the car, the ergonomics and all the connectivity that's on display there just shows you how futuristic this car is. Of course, we want to stay to our roots as well, and be as traditional as possible. But you've got to, at the end of the day, it's 2020 next year, and you've got to keep moving along. So I think inside is something to behold, how they've integrated everything really, really beautifully. And then show them what power it's got. Get them in the cockpit, passenger seat, and I can take them for a drive and show them how much power it's got.
Thanks for your time.
No worries. Cheers.